Insurance isn't a one-size-fits-all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy. Or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple for you to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And away we go, episode 1321 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, May 8th, 2026. It is day one of the Washington Commanders 2026 rookie minicamp, which is taking place Friday through Sunday. Head coach Dan Quinn is scheduled to do a pre-practice press conference on Friday. Will Quinn call anyone, quote, a dog-ass competitor, end quote? That's what I'm interested in. Who, if anyone, will be labeled, quote, a dog-ass competitor, end quote? We know that Quinn loves that phrase.
This is a dog-ass competitor.
Yes, exactly. Will Dan Quinn call anyone, quote, a dog-ass competitor, end quote? Are any of you dog-ass competitors? Should I myself consider myself a dog-ass competitor? I don't know if I've earned that status yet. I'll probably have to work a little harder to attain that status. But whatever the case, on Monday's show, episode 1322, we'll give you in-depth coverage of Commanders rookie minicamp. And also on Monday's show, reaction to whatever happens with our Washington Wizards in the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery, which will take place at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago this Sunday afternoon at 3. I know that this Sunday is Mother's Day, but this Sunday also is a big day for our Washington Wizards. And the Wizards on Thursday morning announced that their representative at the lottery will be former Wizards star John Wall, who the Wizards took with the number 1 overall pick in the 2010 NBA draft out of the University of Kentucky. As Wall was in the news for a second consecutive Thursday, it was the previous Thursday afternoon, April 30th, that Howard University men's basketball head coach Kenneth Blakeney announced having hired Wall as president of basketball operations for Howard men's basketball. But yeah, John Wall repping the Wizards at the lottery. The Wizards off going an NBA worst 17-65 in the 2025-2026 regular season. In season number 3 of their tank, have the following odds in the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery. Number 1 pick, 14%. Number 2 pick, 13.4%. Number 3 pick, 12.7%. Number 4 pick, 12%. Number 5 pick, 47.9%. The Washington Bullets / Washington Wizards history in the NBA Draft Lottery is atrocious. The NBA Draft Lottery started in 1985. The Bullets / Wizards have participated in the NBA Draft Lottery 25 times. The team, over those 25 NBA Draft Lottery opportunities, has received a pick better than the team's pre-lottery position just 3 times and has received a pick worse than the team's pre-lottery position 11 times. So I, as a Wizards fan, am fully prepared for the worst for our team in the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery, but we shall hope for the best. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Next segment, a great guest, NFL analyst Matt Harmon of Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy, the creator of the reception perception methodology for receiver evaluation. Matt is outstanding at talking receivers, and we are going to go in-depth on receiver Antonio Williams, who the Washington Commanders took in the 3rd round of the 2026 NFL Draft out of Clemson. Matt will explain why he is a big believer in Williams. Also, Matt will answer the following question: which of the following veteran receivers Washington should be / should have been most interested in acquiring? The San Francisco 49ers' Brandon Aiyuk, Niners unrestricted free agent Jauan Jennings, who reportedly is signing with the Minnesota Vikings, or New England Patriots unrestricted free agent Stefon Diggs. And Matt will give us analysis of Washington's WR1, Terry McLaurin, of whom Matt has been a big fan for years. Matt Harmon, next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season finally have won a series at Nationals Park, a 7-5 win over the Minnesota Twins at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon to win 2 out of 3 games in the series and conclude a 3-3 homestand. The O's, they concluded a 2-5 road trip with a 4-3 walk-off loss at the Miami Marlins on Thursday evening, denying the O's a 3-game sweep. Orioles starting pitcher Cade Povich was removed from the game due to left forearm discomfort. Not good. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And if you want Apple Podcasts, give the podcast a 5-star rating. On the podcast, we'll read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast. And what you write could be a sports take. In other words, you don't just have to write about the podcast. From Mr. Patrick Gray on Apple Podcasts. Writes Patrick, as a lifelong DC sports fan, I was introduced to sports talk radio from a young age by my dad. Ken Beatrice was a mainstay during the glory days, and as I got older, I was looking for that guy for my generation. That's a tall order, but there was this guy doing updates on 980 during the not-so-glorious years for the team, who had a voice that stuck out. That guy was Al Galdi, and he became my guy from that point on. Whenever he was on someone else's show, I was excited because it really felt like he had bridged that gap between fandom and professional sports talk. I used to love listening to his Saturday show, and Off the Top Rope was always a welcome surprise. It truly felt like I was listening to a real dude and not some guy who had just found himself reporting on some franchise somewhere. Skip ahead a few years, and I followed Galdi wherever he went. When what happened with 980 happened, I was living out of state and was saddened to not be able to hear from him reporting on our teams. Then seemingly out of nowhere, the podcast came out, and it has been a fixture in my life ever since. When Galdi was out last year, I found myself genuinely concerned and was glad that he came back and never skipped a beat. I am grateful that he is doing better and has been as consistent as ever. I truly appreciate what he does each day. Honest reporting and opinion on our teams and insightful and well thought out feature segments. I truly salute the man and this podcast. Now, who do I need to talk to about getting you to do a companion Off the Top Rope show? Thank you very much for that, Patrick. I appreciate that a lot. I had a lot of fun doing Off the Top Rope. Off the Top Rope was a pro wrestling insider segment that I did on my weekly Saturday show, Sports Saturday with Al Galdi, March 2010 to July 2013 on 980. And, you know, Patrick mentioned the godfather of sports talk radio in the Washington, D.C. area, Ken Beatrice. I was Ken's last regular radio producer. While at the University of Maryland, worked part-time at 980, and one of my duties was serving as Ken's last regular radio producer before his retirement in April 2000. I, as a punk college kid, got to see up close and personal how Ken did what he did. From Murphy Lynch on Apple Podcasts, writes Murphy, love getting my daily Commanders news from Eric Idle lookalike Al Galdi. He's knowledgeable and a great interviewer with insider guests. He even gets me rooting for the Caps when the Bruins aren't playing. Thank you for that, Murphy. So I had to Google who Eric Idle is. Eric Idle co-created and acted in the Monty Python movies. Do I look like him? I don't think that I look like him, but maybe I do. It can be hard to say who you yourself look like. I don't feel like I look like that guy, but maybe I'm wrong. From Troy Coral on X off our conversation on Tuesday's show, episode 1318 with legendary Penn State football and men's basketball radio play-by-play announcer Steve Jones on the many reasons to be excited about the Washington Commanders having taken Penn State running back Katron Fatman Allen in the 6th round of the 2026 NFL Draft. And among the insights from Steve was that Allen is good in pass protection. The fat man excels in pass pro, writes Troy. Love the show on Tuesday, Al. It would be awesome if Fat works out. He definitely has a leg up if he's a good blocker. That seems to hamper a lot of rookies. Thank you for that, Troy. Very true. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, him not being good in pass protection, limited his playing time as a rookie running back for Washington last season, even though he was productive. But Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt in the 2025 regular season played in all 17 of Washington's games, but on just 38.52% of the team's offensive snaps. He was not especially trusted on passing downs, both in terms of as a blocker and a pass catcher. He had just 9 receptions. All right, clothing from Quince is outstanding. Quince has all of your wardrobe staples for spring. Think 100% European linen shorts and shirts from just $34. Everything is priced at 50 to 80% less than what you'd find with similar brands. How? Well, Quince works directly with ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality, not brand markup. Everything is designed to last and make getting dressed easy. I have a Quince blue wool pullover. I love it. So comfortable. One of my favorite pieces of clothing from this past winter. Refresh your everyday with luxury that you'll actually use. Go to quince.com/Galdi for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/Galdi. Free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/Galdi.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend, the big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel, but it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVanish.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com. The Washington Commanders on Friday are beginning their 3-day rookie minicamp. They on Thursday morning announced jersey numbers for the 6 players who the team took in the 2026 NFL Draft. Among those jersey numbers, the number 14 for receiver Antonio Williams, who Washington took in the 3rd round at Clemson. Another NFL receiver who wears the number 14 is the Detroit Lions' Amon-Ra St. Brown. And as you may recall, it was on last Friday's show, episode 1316, that we spoke with Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room on Substack, and he talked about how he views Antonio Williams as being poised to play the same role for Washington that Amon-Ra St. Brown plays for Detroit. For more on Antonio Williams, it is a pleasure to welcome to the Al Galdi podcast one of the premier analysts for NFL receivers, NFL analyst Matt Harmon of Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy. He is the creator of the reception perception methodology for receiver evaluation. Check out his site, receptionperception.com. His YouTube channel has more than 22,000 subscribers. His YouTube handle is at Matt Harmon RP. You can follow Matt on X at @MattHarmon_BYB. Hey, Matt, how are you?
I'm doing well and good to be here. And yeah, I appreciate all the plugs there at the top. A lot of stuff going on. So it is good to be involved with the wide receiver business right now. Coming off this draft class, a lot of really interesting landing spots, and Antonio Williams to the Commanders, definitely one of those.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to you expounding on that, but I'm a big fan of what you do with reception perception. For the uninitiated, what exactly is reception perception?
Yeah, so reception perception's the methodology that I created back in 2013 to the 2014 NFL season. First year I collected league-wide data where I'm evaluating wide receivers isolated from outside variables. So the way I do that is over an 8-game sample for NFL players and college prospects. I chart every single route that they run, every single snap that they take, how often they get open against man zone press coverage, how often they execute on their route assignments across the route tree. So the route graphics that folks can find all over the internet and of course on the website receptionperception.com. It really shows that as well. It's not the only thing, right? The colors on the route tree, green, good, red, a below average, what have you. It's just kind of the entryway, the starting point. Again, the goal is to isolate wide receivers from surrounding variables because, certainly Washington fans know this with a guy like Terry McLaurin. A guy can be an incredible wide receiver, but the stats aren't always there to back that up because of quarterback play, because of offensive chaos around those guys. So, and then you see McLaurin gets a quarterback like Jaden Daniels and he finally has that kind of big season that I think he's always been capable of. So that's just one of the things you're looking for when you're doing receiver charting is, again, how to try to spot those guys who are a little bit underappreciated based on the stats, because wide receivers need so many things to go right around them to accumulate some of that production.
It's great that you do this. Now, this charting that you're doing, are you doing this on your own or are you getting help?
It's all on my own, man. Everything that is a wide receiver charting data point on reception perception has been collected by me, whether it's all the way back in 2014 till all the way up to these most recent draft prospects and the year 2 profiles that I'm working on right now.
That's tremendous. Isolating individual performance in football is so hard. To what extent have you, with reception perception, been able to isolate individual receiver performance?
No question, it's hard. And, I never pitch myself as something that like, oh, this is perfect. There's no such thing really as a perfect methodology when you're doing anything, and certainly when it comes to football, because as you mentioned, there's just so many things have to work in concert together, specifically when you're looking at receivers against zone coverage, right? Like, is it the fault of a defender that this guy is open, or did he do something right? I think for me, the goal is always I want to get you in the neighborhood, even if we're not walking through the front door, when it comes to isolating receiver play. I think over the long haul, as you're working through, a wide sample of games, the reason I do 8 games is because, as I mentioned, I'm the only person doing this. To do an entire season for all these players would obviously be a big chore. But 8 games is where I found that the data normalized. Before I put anything out in the public back in 2013, the first article didn't go live until 2014 on my original OG website back in the day. That was where I found that the data normalized to kind of adequately get us a full sample for a full season of who these guys are. So, like I said, it is certainly not perfect when it comes to the player isolating part of it. Nothing is, but I think we get into the right neighborhood, and sort of that's why honestly, it's less so about, oh, this guy's better than this player because he's at 75% success rate versus man, and this guy's at 73%. I really kind of like to focus on an individual player's profile and sort of what type of wide receiver he is, like what role might this guy fill, because I think that is something that we can kind of get a better sense of as opposed to comparing guys across schemes and everything like that.
Awesome. Well, I really do think that you have helped enhance the conversation about NFL receivers, so props to you. You on May 1st came out with a video on YouTube, headline, quote, 5 WR NFL draft landing spots that matter for fantasy football, end quote. Among the situations that you highlighted was Washington drafting Antonio Williams. Why are you high on Washington having drafted Williams?
Yeah, and for fantasy and for real life, I mean, this is the team that just has a lot of opportunity to walk in for a wide receiver. I mentioned Terry McLaurin, who I've been a longtime big fan of. Terry McLaurin is a really good receiver. Outside of that, not a lot on the depth chart, right? Not a lot of proven guys beyond Terry McLaurin there. Traylon Burks is a guy that flashed a little bit for them last year. He was a player I was a little lower on than consensus when he came into the league because I thought he fit for, and I have an article up on my website about this, one of these guys that struggled to separate at the collegiate level against man and press coverage. Typically those guys, if they find success in the NFL, they need to be kicked from the perimeter into the slot. And Burks was a guy that he even played a ton from the slot as a college prospect at Arkansas. the Tennessee Titans, when they drafted him, essentially did the opposite of that. They basically stuck him in A.J. Brown's vacated X receiver role, and that did not go very well. He also struggled with injuries, some other stuff like that. But, he flashed for Washington last year. He's an interesting reclamation project because I think there are some good parts to his game, just was a little bit overdrafted back in 2022. I don't say that to victory lap, by the way, because this will be tough for Washington fans. I was also high on Jahan Dotson that year, and he didn't particularly work out for Washington. We'll see what he does for Atlanta this year. But again, a lot of opportunity on this depth chart. Luke McCaffrey hasn't quite stepped up just yet. Jalen Lane flashed a little bit, but no proven starter across from Terry McLaurin. I think Antonio Williams is a guy who comes in with a really pro-ready skill set. Now, he certainly fits into the bucket of players that I've kind of maybe been a little too high on. If we want to talk about the Dotsons of the world, or kind of these smaller separation-based receivers, he's 5'11", 187 pounds. But I do think he shows the skill set to be able to not just play from the slot, which he did play a ton at Clemson last year, but he also, I think, can play as a Z receiver in 2 receiver sets. Like if this team's going to go into 12 personnel, they do need somebody to play off ball across from Terry McLaurin as that vertical X receiver. And I think there's a lot about Williams' game that I think translates to that role.
Washington general manager Adam Peters, during his press conference on the night on which the team drafted Antonio Williams, April 24th, called Williams, quote, an NFL route runner, end quote. Williams is regarded as a really good route runner and a really good separator. Those would seem to be receiver traits that translate well to the NFL. Is that the case?
Yeah, I think it's not a guarantee, right? Like there have been guys that have come into the league that have been good separators and good route runners, at least based on my charting methodology. And, they haven't necessarily worked out for one reason or another. That being said, and again, I have an article about the poor separation bucket of receivers on the site. And there, if you compare that to guys, those guys are sub 35th percentile in at least 2 of the 3 success rate versus man, zone, or press. So again, I think kind of these are the guys that have a little bit of issues separating against one type of coverage or another. A lot of those guys do just flame out of the league. Like 42% of the players that fit into that bucket since I've been charting prospects have been cut on their rookie contracts. Now, again, that doesn't mean that there aren't guys in that same bucket on the 65th percentile and above, like the good separation guys that have been cut on their rookie contract or haven't worked out. But all of like our best hits, like clear cut hits, these guys are good starting receivers. They average 60 or more yards per game in their NFL careers. Those guys all do come from, for the most part, come from that like big bucket of good separation receivers. Now, there are some other guys that are just good quality role players, solid guys around like 50 yards per game, something like that. They can also be found in that bucket as well. So I do think that like route running translates really well. I would also say in today's game, like spatial awareness when you're trying to get open against zone coverage, because the league-wide zone rates have really kicked up, certainly over the course of the last decade or so. That really matters a lot. But it does depend, too, not to just fully, it does depend on role and all that, but it does kind of depend on what you're going to ask of the guy, like what traits you want to have them translate from the college to the NFL level.
Adam Peters, during that press conference on April 24th, also made it clear that he sees Antonio Williams as someone who can play on the outside. Do you see him as someone who, in the NFL, is almost exclusively a slot receiver, or as someone who can play on the outside a good bit?
I see him as slot mostly, but not slot only. And that's like the real difference when we're talking about, can this guy be a full-time player? There are guys that I really like a Jaden Reed is an example of this for the Packers, where I think he can play on the outside, but he's just never been given that opportunity. And for that reason, he's kind of he'll have these big moments, then he'll kind of go quiet just because he's kind of rotating on and off the field. For a guy, like Antonio Williams, I think he shows an ability to be a little bit more than that. You look at his success rate versus man coverage and reception perception, 73.3%. That's a 75th percentile mark. And the reason that matters is that if you're going to play on the perimeter, you are going to face more man coverage than you would from the slot, right? Just the coverages that you're going to go against, the defenders you're going to see, it's just different on the perimeter versus the outside. Now, again, some of this is projection because he did play a lot in the slot, especially his final year at Clemson. But I think not only does he have the ability to win on the outside from a I can get open and make plays standpoint, I also like his ball tracking ability and tight coverage. That's going to matter if you're going to play on the perimeter. And then, this is the less sexy part of it, but he's a really good and willing blocker, I think, for someone of his size. 5'11", 187 pounds. He's definitely someone that's willing to scrap and mix in like that. So I think that's a big part of why he can hang on the outside. And you're not going to ask him to be the vertical X running the 9 routes and the go routes and winning against that vertical on the vertical plane there. But I think the routes that you'd have your Z receiver run, he can handle.
Much more with Matt Harmon in moments, but if you enjoy this podcast, check out BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com. BGO Blind Pig is great. It is a roundtable discussion of the Washington Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Washington fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. Enhance your Washington Commanders content via the BGO Blind Pig podcast. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Next time you're on YouTube, search BGO Blind Pig Podcast and see what you think. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig Podcast part of your Washington Commanders podcast rotation. We're talking with NFL analyst Matt Harmon of Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy, the creator of the reception perception methodology for receiver evaluation. It feels, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it feels like there in recent years has been a narrowing of the gap between the value of outside receivers and the value of slot receivers, that slot receivers have gained in value, that referring to a receiver as a slot guy is no longer like an insult.
Well, the game is kind of cyclical in that way, because I would say when I started working on so it's just 2013 around there, slot receiver was at that point kind of like a pejorative term, right? Like, he's just a slot guy. Like, you can find those, you can find those dudes. And to a certain extent, like, that was kind of true. But then as so many teams went to more of these spread concepts and tried to live out of 11 personnel, that slot receiver, really mattered. And even to that point, you wanted to kind of put your best player in the slot in a lot of ways. That was something in 2017, 2016 I was talking about a lot, where I'd like to just to throw a random name, I'd love to see Julio Jones at that time, get about 30% of his routes from the slot, just because you can really weaponize those players from that interior position. So it did open up the game to more body types in that way. And yeah, it was a valuable thing. I would say in a way we've kind of not come back around to where, he's just a slot is that same pejorative term. But I've mentioned this a lot so far that, these guys who come on and off the field, it does kind of decrease your value in today's game, as so many teams. I'm curious if you have a perspective on this, what Washington might. I really am intrigued by David Blau and what he's going to be from the differences between him and Cliff Kingsbury, more like Ben Johnson-esque. But how much 12 personnel, how much 13 personnel are they going to play? What is the tight end usage going to be? Because in that case, then your slot receiver is not on the field, and you almost have to be somebody like an Amon-Ra St. Brown, who started as a slot receiver, but now only took 44% of his snaps inside this past year. So you almost kind of have had to be a guy who you got to blur the line, I think, between slot and Z receiver. And some of that has allowed, again, even more body types to thrive in full-time roles. So it is it's almost like, to make a long story short there, it's a little bit of a moving target, but no question that the slot receiver, it's not as much of a pejorative term as it used to be.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. With Washington's new offensive coordinator, David Blau, there is a lot that we don't know. The anticipation is that he's going to go with a Ben Johnson-style offense. The team has made it clear that the plan is to have more under-center snaps for quarterback Jaden Daniels. Antonio Williams would seem to fit into the role of Amon-Ra St. Brown in terms of what he does for Detroit. Not that Williams is St. Brown, but the same role. But we'll see.
No question. And then it comes down to sort of the tight end usage as well, as we've been kind of talking about. John Bates is somebody who can play kind of that inline role. And I think one thing that was really fun to see back, and I always come back to this example early on in Ben Johnson's tenure there, when they had Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. because Laporta, he kind of gets a reputation as a great blocker because he comes from Iowa and like he's a tough, gritty player. But like he was a guy that's a bit of a smaller tight end. He's not the tallest, not the biggest guy in the world, and they would do a lot to kind of almost use those two players interchangeably, where like St. Brown would take on more of the blocking burden, and then a guy like Laporta could be detached from the formation a little bit. And I think they could do some of the similar things there with Chico Okonkwo, who's not the biggest tight end in the world either, and is not necessarily going to be your inline guy. So that's what's going to be fascinating for Blau on a massive promotion. I mean, to go from assistant quarterback coach to, I'm running the offense now. And I mean, I remember when this guy was playing games in the NFL like not that long ago. So it's a big rise for him. It's a lot to handle, but we'll see if he can pull it off.
I mean, David Blau has only been an NFL coach for 2 years. He was on the Lions practice squad as a quarterback in the 2023 season, then spent the last 2 seasons as Washington's assistant quarterbacks coach, and now he's the team's offensive coordinator. All right, a lot of talk in the Washington, D.C. area lately about the Commanders potentially doing more at receiver. There is the ongoing saga of San Francisco 49ers receiver Brandon Aiyuk and the potential for Washington to get him. Remaining an unrestricted free agent had been another receiver from the Niners, Jauan Jennings, but we late night on Thursday night had reports that he's signing with the Minnesota Vikings. And Stefon Diggs is an unrestricted free agent. He did well for the New England Patriots this past season, and he this past Tuesday was found not guilty of felony strangulation and misdemeanor assault and battery in a 2-day trial regarding a December 2025 incident with his former personal chef. I'll include Jennings in this, even though he's now off the market. But if you are Washington, who should you most want/have wanted? Aiyuk, Jennings, or Diggs?
I would almost answer your question with another question, which is, what kind of swing do you want to take here? Are we trying to get up to the plate and just get on base, or are we trying to get up to the plate and like potentially hit a home run here, but you're okay with a full-on strikeout? And in that case, like if you're okay with that variance, Aiyuk is definitely the guy that's the most interesting, because there was no bigger fan at Brandon Aiyuk's peak than me. I thought this guy, he was somebody, from his rookie season on, I was super high on from a reception perception standpoint. Now, he obviously had some peaks and valleys there with San Francisco, where he was even in the doghouse at one point, but he fought back out of that, came out of that, had a really nice season in 2022, and legitimately in 2023 was like an elite receiver. That was how high I would view him. But 2023 was a long time ago, and I say this again as somebody that was a massive fan of Aiyuk. I have no idea what the next step is for him at this point. So I would not bring him in on his current contract. I would wait, but San Francisco can essentially take this thing all the way to the end of August, if my understanding is correct. So that is really risky for a player that, is kind of been tough to get a hold of at this point. So he's definitely the biggest home run swing. And I have no idea if he's ever going to, honestly, I'd probably bet against him ever getting back to that 2023 form. But, he, like I said, legitimately elite at his most recent peak. Jennings has never been that guy, but I think he fits really well as a big slot, Z kind of hybrid player. If you get into, off-season activities and you're like, okay, Antonio Williams has been good, but, maybe not to like Matt Harmon's level of expectation of what he could be right away. I think you could bring in Jennings as a little bit of insurance there. Plus, he gives you a different dimension. He's like a bigger, more physical player than Antonio Williams is going to be. Williams probably better on the downfield routes, like big in breakers, posts and digs and overs and stuff like that than Jauan Jennings, who's more of a short area guy at this point in his career. Diggs is really interesting, man, because I thought Diggs was fantastic last year. He, again, is not going to give you the physicality from a blocking standpoint that either Williams or Jauan Jennings. Like, I've had a long relationship with Stefon Diggs over the years, and I've even kind of joked with him about his blocking at times. Like, that's not the strength of his game for sure, but he did show last year he can still run really good routes and get open, so that's certainly something that across from Terry McLaurin you're going to need. I would say, again, if we're ranking these guys, the biggest home run swing, but probably the most likely you're going to get absolutely zero, is Aiyuk. I would say Jennings I would put after Diggs in terms of like my excitement level of what they did on film last year.
Interesting that you know Stefon Diggs. He's a local, went to Our Lady of Good Counsel High School in Olney, Maryland, then went to the University of Maryland. But boy, there has been a lot of stuff with him in recent years. He's bounced around the NFL a good bit in recent years. What are we to make of Stefon Diggs, the guy?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and say we're best friends, or anything like that, but we have known each other over the years because he was a very original flag plan of reception perception early on. I thought he was truly the production that he put up in Buffalo. The film said years before that he could be that guy. This is the point of reception perception. It's trying to isolate him from what he was doing in Minnesota as that kind of guy. He was separating at an elite level back then. Just the volume and the stats weren't always there. And I think that has been a thing for Diggs, I think, over the course of his career. When he believes he's capable of doing more, I think the frustration can come out there. And, it's one of those, we all have relationships like this where, it burns pretty hot at the beginning, and then but it burns out pretty fast too. I kind of think that might be the phase of Diggs's career that he's in right now. But there's no question, I think, from an on-field perspective, that he brings a lot for these young quarterbacks. Because if I could say one thing about Diggs that I think is probably a little misunderstood, and personal life, any of that stuff is a different discussion. But I think from a football character standpoint, the guy really wants to win. And I think is less selfish than probably the reputation that he gets, if that makes sense. There's no question that he wants the ball and he wants to be involved in things, but he also was pretty comfortable in a lesser role last year from a snap perspective, for New England, where they were kind of doing right by him as he came back from that ACL. And he was pretty comfortable with that. And obviously them winning games is a big deal there. So I think he brings a lot of energy and leadership to a culture, to a locker room, at least in the early portion of where he'd be.
Final question. You've been a big fan of Washington's WR1, Terry McLaurin, for years. He in the 2025 regular season played in just 10 of Washington's 17 games due to a twice-injured quadriceps for what was his first injury-plagued season in 7 NFL seasons. He's going into his age 31 season. What's your assessment of where we're at with him?
Yeah, that's the thing with Terry, is he is sneaky older than you think, because he was a little bit older coming into the NFL, and you always have to wonder, as receivers get into their 30s, what are they going to look like? And, I would say this about just receiver aging and age cliffs. It's the thing I'm least confident in forecasting for players, because I think that history has shown us that there's really no pattern, right? Sometimes the cliff is just right like this. It's when it's there, it's gone. And there have been guys that I've really liked, like an Allen Robinson, for example. I was a big fan of Robinson, but you saw him his 1 year in Los Angeles with the Rams. It's it's over. He just doesn't look anything. And it was very quick. It was very fast. And his lower body injuries usually started. And there are other guys like Diggs, great example, has aged really gracefully kind of through that decline, where he is not the player that he was in isolation in 2022, where he was winning on vertical routes. That started to go in 23, but then each of these years since then, he's still kind of hung on to that version of his ability. So you're hoping for Terry, who I do think is an underrated technician, probably not to the level of Diggs or Keenan Allen, these guys who have aged pretty gracefully. I think that he's probably not quite to that level, but he's not far off. I think he's a really good underrated route runner, really good technical understanding of how to win against press man coverage, particularly with his releases. That I think would give you hope that he can age gracefully. I think he still showed a lot when he was healthy last year. You just have to hope that there are less injuries this year, which, when receivers start to get into 30s, you never know. The one thing I would like to say too about Terry, I'd like to see him moved around a little bit more in this offense than he was in the previous offense. That's pretty typical Cliff Kingsbury stuff. I have an article actually on my site about skewed alignment prospects, these prospects that only line up on one side of the field, and how that's been a historic red flag for me with prospects coming to the NFL. It's kind of slowed their transition to the league. And it's because it's so unusual for NFL players to only line up on one side of the field. The one exception is usually Cliff Kingsbury's offense. I think I have 4 or 5 seasons where guys have taken over 70% of their snaps on one side of the field, and they're all but one of those is a receiver in a Cliff Kingsbury offense. Whether it's Terry, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins with the Cardinals as well. So I would like to see him moved around and play some more off ball, play more in the slot. But obviously his main role is still going to be as the vertical X.
NFL analyst Matt Harmon of Yahoo Sports and Yahoo Fantasy, the creator of the reception perception methodology for receiver evaluation. Matt, thank you. Continued success.
No doubt. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right, good stuff from Matt Harmon. By the way, some Washington Commanders news on Thursday evening. First of all, former Washington quarterback Taylor Heinicke on Instagram announced his retirement. Now, if you are a regular listener of this podcast, Heinicke announcing this was not surprising. Scott Jackson, co-host of the official Commanders postgame show on the Washington Commanders radio network, he in late December on episode 1227 of this podcast told us that Heinicke was retiring. But he is officially retiring. All the best to Taylor Heinicke. All the best to our guy Tay-Tay. Also, we on Thursday evening had reports that Washington is hiring San Francisco 49ers area scout Ryan Kesnick as director of college scouting. He succeeds Tim Gribble, who this offseason left his job as Washington director of college scouting to join the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ryan Kesnick worked for the Washington Redskins decades ago, May 2005 to February 2006 as a pro scouting assistant. He had worked for the Niners as a college scout since May 2019, so he worked with Washington general manager Adam Peters during his time as a Niners executive. Hey, if you have a case, contact Chris Nace. Contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and mention that Al Galdi sent you. You could call 202-902-7611. You could also visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and submit for a free, no-obligation case review. The Nace Law Group, it features compassionate lawyers and zealous advocates for its clients. Led by the great Chris Nace and founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. It will fight for you and your family. The Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the Nace Law Group. We always hope that all is well with you, but if you have an issue, if you have concerns, contact the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. Well, it took nearly a month and a half, but the Washington Nationals at last have won a home series in MLB's 2026 regular season. A 7-5 win over the Minnesota Twins at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon to win 2 out of 3 games in the series and conclude a 3-3 homestand. The Nats now are 18-20, 6-13 at home versus 12-7 on the road. The Nats off totaling just 8 runs in 4 games, now have totaled 22 runs over the team's last 2 games. So the offense had cooled off, perhaps now is heating back up. But we had the 15-2 win over the Twins at Nationals Park on Wednesday evening, and now we have this 7-5 win over the Twins at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon. A game in which the offense did well, 7 runs, 8 hits, which were a home run, 3 doubles and 4 singles, 4 walks, 3 for 7 with runners in scoring position, and leading the way was Keibert Ruiz. What a game for him. He is the Nats starting catcher and number 8 batter, went 3 for 4 with a solo homer, a 2-run double, and an RBI double. He had 8 total bases and 4 RBI. Ruiz in the Nats' 2-run third had a first pitch RBI double to right field to cut the Nats deficit to 2-1. Ruiz in the Nats' 3-run fifth had a full count 2-run double to the right center field gap for a 4-3 Nats lead. Ruiz in the Nats' 2-run seventh had a leadoff homer to right field for a 6-5 Nats lead. Understand that Keibert Ruiz came into this game with just 6 extra base hits over 69 plate appearances. He in this game had 3 extra base hits over 4 plate appearances. He is having yet another bad season. I mean, Keibert Ruiz for this regular season, even with what he did on Thursday afternoon, has an OPS of just .633, including, you ready for this, an on-base percentage of just .233. He has one walk over 73 plate appearances, but He on Thursday afternoon was really good. Good for him. And he did what he did off what the Nats' other catcher, Drew Millis, did in that 15-2 win over the Twins on Wednesday evening. Millis in that game as the Nats starting catcher and number 8 batter went 2 for 4 with a 2-run homer and a double. Here was Nats manager Blake Butera during his postgame press conference on Thursday afternoon on Keibert Ruiz, and then you'll hear multiple follow-up exchanges.
I felt like it was kind of the talking point last night with Millie. Good to see both those guys have good nights back to back. And Keibert, man, that was a huge game from him. Such a big spot every time he came up there. The 2 doubles, the home run, just big spots. Just happy for him, happy for us, of course, but ultimately just really good to see, and hopefully gain some confidence and keep the momentum rolling.
What does it do for the lineup when you're getting that type of production with Drew last night and then Ruiz today just out of the catcher spot?
Yeah, it goes a long way. I think the strides that they've made defensively and how well they've done back there so far. I told both of them, being able to hit is just such an added bonus. But if we can get some offense from both those guys, it just goes such a long way with the defense they're providing behind the plate right now. Obviously, you see the help it gives us back-to-back days when they swing the bats like they did.
I know you met with everybody this week. Was there a particular message to those two or a challenge to them to do something that you've now seen?
They were a little bit different for each of them, but I think the overarching theme was just they both want to provide help offensively. They both believe they should be doing better than they are, and it just seems like they're trying to hit a grand slam every at bat. They're trying to gain 100 points in average with each plate appearance. And the message outside of just some specifics that they can kind of work on with the bat was basically get back to your process. Every at bat, just win each pitch. Win one pitch at a time, have one good at bat at a time, have one good day at a time. Look up, a month from now, 2 months from now, and you're going to be in a pretty good spot when you just focus on the task at hand and not trying to climb that ladder with one swing of the bat. Like, it's going to take time. And they both know that they're not providing the offense they would like to, and that weighs on their shoulders a lot. So I think just the message to both of them is just one pitch, one at bat at a time, one game at a time, and just slowly just continue stacking days, and we'll see where we're at in a month from now.
All right. Also with the Nats offense, Curtis Mead continues to be productive when called upon. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 3 batter. Went 1 for 4 with an RBI single and an RBI fielder's choice grounder. Mead in the Nats 2-run 7th had a went-out opposite field RBI single to right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 7-5 Nats lead. Curtis Mead for this regular season, 94 plate appearances, OPS of 758. And tonight's game for James Wood. He is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter. Went 1 for 2 with a double and 2 walks. And he got credited with an outfield assist. Wood for this regular season now has an OPS of 908. The Nats starting pitcher in this 7-5 win over the Twins at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon was Jake Irvin. He did have a disappointing outing. He allowed 4 runs in 5 innings. He gave up 8 hits, which were a home run, 2 doubles, and 5 singles. Did suffer from some bad luck as some of the singles were a result of weak contact. He issued a walk and a hit by pitch. He recorded just 2 strikeouts. That was unfortunate. Irvin had been doing much better in terms of generating strikeouts. Now, he threw a lot of pitches, did throw a lot of strikes. He over his 5 innings threw 92 pitches, but 63 strikes, just 29 balls. However, the Twins fouled off 24 of Irvin's pitches, so a lot of the strikes were foul balls. He was not putting guys away. His outing ended in a bad way. Irvin's outing ended by him giving up a leadoff homer by Ryan Jeffers to left field in the top of the 6th to cut the Nats lead to 5-4. The homer went a projected 432 feet per StatCast. And this is key, Irvin could have allowed more than 4 runs as he benefited from 2 big outs on the base paths. Center fielder Jacob Young threw out Cody Clemens at home for an 8-2 double play to end the Twins' 2-run second, and Austin Martin got tagged out in a rundown between third base and home plate on Ryan Jeffers' 2-out opposite field double to right field on an 0-2 pitch to end the top of the 3rd. Jake Irvin now for this regular season, 8 games, all starts, ERA of 5.22, whip of 1.5. 3-6. But the Nats relief pitching in this 7-5 win over the Twins at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon was good. 4 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run in 4 innings. Richard Lovelady tossed 2/3 of a scoreless and hitless inning, though he in the top of the 6th faced 5 batters but got just 2 outs. He issued 2 walks and a hit by pitch. He threw 16 pitches, just 7 strikes versus 9 balls. Orlando Revolta officially allowed 1 run in 1 inning off giving up a 2-out opposite field double by Ryan Jeffers into no man's land in right field on an 0-2 pitch in the Twins' 1-run 7th. But Revolta began his outing by getting a big out. Revolta came into the game in the top of the 6th with the bases loaded, 2 outs, and the Nats up 5-4, and he generated a full count swinging strikeout of the Twins' number 1 batter, Byron Buxton, for the 3rd out. P.J. Poulin officially tossed a scoreless inning with 2 swinging strikeouts, but he to the first batter he faced gave up a 2-out full count RBI double by ex-Nat Josh Bell off the left field warning track to tie the game at 5 in the top of the 7th. But Gus Vorland tossed 1 1/3 scoreless innings with 2 swinging strikeouts for a 4-out save. Each of 5 different relievers has at least 1 save for the Nats in this regular season, but Vorland holds the team lead in saves. He's 4 for 6, and how do you not like his strikeout to walk ratio? 16 strikeouts versus just 3 walks in 14 2/3 innings. Next up for the Nats is a 6-game road trip beginning with a 3-game series at the Miami Marlins. The Nats have listed the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1 Friday night at 7:10, Foster Griffin. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 4:10, Zach Littell. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 12:15, Cade Cavalli.
I drive my bus in a busy city. That's why road safety is so important to me. I know that I must slow down and be extra careful when I make a wide turn. Buses need more room than cars. Everyone can help keep our roads safe. Next time you're driving, remember to give buses plenty of time and space to finish turning before driving ahead. Let's all plan to share the road safely. Learn how at www.sharetheroadsafely.gov.
Well, not a good Thursday evening for the Baltimore Orioles. A, they got walked off. B, it appears yet another pitcher is injured. A 4-3 walk-off loss at the Miami Marlins on Thursday evening, denying the O's a 3-game sweep and concluding a 2-5 road trip. The O's in this game did overcome a 3-2 eighth-inning deficit, but they in MLB's 2026 regular season fell to 17-21. And the Orioles starting pitcher in this game, Cade Povich, he was removed from the game due to left forearm discomfort. You do not like hearing that. Left forearm discomfort for a left-handed starting pitcher, Cade Povich. He allowed 3 runs in 3 innings. He gave up 3 hits, which were a home run and 2 singles. He issued 2 walks and a hit by pitch, recorded just 1 strikeout through 43 pitches, 27 strikes, 16 balls. So we'll see about the extent of his ailment, but consider all of the Orioles pitchers currently on injured list, to say nothing of all of the Orioles position players currently on injured list, but just the following Orioles pitchers already are on injured list. Starting pitchers, Trevor Rogers, Dean Kramer, and Zach Eflin, and relief pitchers, Ryan Helsley, Felix Bautista, Yarmil Geraldo, and Colin Selby. So Cade Povich left the game due to left forearm discomfort, but the Orioles bullpen was very good. 4 Orioles relievers in this 4-3 walk-off loss at the Marlins on Thursday evening combined to allow 1 run unearned in 5 2/3 innings. Yadier Cano tossed 2 perfect innings. Dietrich Enns tossed 2 scoreless and hitless innings. Keegan Aiken tossed a scoreless bottom of the 8th despite beginning that half inning by giving up back-to-back singles. However, Andrew Kittredge, he allowed an unearned run in 2/3 of an inning. He, in the bottom of the 9th, retired each of the first 2 batters he faced, but he then gave up a 2-out double by Joe Mack to right field. And then third baseman Kobe Mayo committed a walk-off run-scoring throwing error on a grounder by Javier Sanoa, as Mayo initially botched the fielding of the grounder, collected the ball, but then made an errant throw to first base. Kobe Mayo has been the Orioles' regular starting third baseman due to third baseman/second baseman Jordan Westburg having not played at all in this regular season due to a partial UCL tear in his right elbow. The defense with Mayo has been a concern, and the defense on Thursday evening proved costly. Mayo, as the Orioles starting third baseman and number 8 batter, did go 2 for 4 with 2 singles, but He overall isn't hitting. His OPS for this regular season is just .521. The Orioles offense in this 4-3 walk-off loss at the Marlins on Thursday evening was so-so. 3 runs, 9 hits, which were 2 doubles and 7 singles, 3 walks, 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. The O's scored their 3 runs on 3 RBI singles. Gunnar Henderson, as the Orioles starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 1 for 5 with an RBI single. Pete Alonso, as the Orioles starting first baseman and number 4 batter, went 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Tyler O'Neill, as the Orioles starting right fielder and number 6 batter, went 1 for 4 with an RBI single. Samuel Basallo, he is the Orioles starting catcher and number 5 batter, went 1 for 4 with a double. He, for this regular season, now has an OPS of .795. Next up for the O's is a 6-game homestand beginning with a 3-game series against the Athletics at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Game 1 Friday night at 7:05. Kyle Bradish will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 4:05. Shane Baz will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 1:35. Chris Bassett will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Monday's show, episode 1322. We'll have a lot for you on the Washington Commanders as we have the team's 2026 rookie minicamp Friday through Sunday. Also on Monday's show, I'll react to whatever happens with our Washington Wizards in the 2026 NBA Draft Lottery, which will take place at the McCormick Place Convention Center in Chicago this Sunday afternoon at 3. And on Monday's show, we'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series at the Miami Marlins. The O's this weekend have a 3-game series against the Athletics at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
This is a dog-ass competitor.
Now, at McDonald's, wake up to a $4 breakfast meal deal. Wake up to a sausage McMuffin or a sausage biscuit, to hash browns, and wake up to a hot coffee. Get your $4 breakfast meal deal.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.